in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you, 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 won't you let the light shine through? In the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through for you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Elite FPL Sunday Surgery. Of course, as ever, I'm joined with my co-host Jason. Good afternoon, Jason.
Good evening, Steve-O. Good evening, everybody in the chat. Oh, I didn't put my light on. 1 second, let me put my light on.
Oh, we ain't got the light on.
There you go.
I've got the illuminated badge logo there.
There we go. How's it going, FPL Penguin? We've got Mark in chat. Mark Kohas. Don't know how to say your name, sorry. FPL Booner. Sean McGee. Vanessa's in chat. Or Vanessa. Mr. Big Vern to you. That's a new name. Hello, Mr. Big Vern. How are you doing today? Pidy Pa, welcome. Uncle GCTV, Greasy Trumpet, all the way down from South Africa.
FPL Pitches. I haven't seen his name.
FPL Pitch. That's a name that I haven't read out for a while. FPL Alex a Kid as well. Another one. Lee Brunt. Christophe Demu is in chat. J-Boy. Shaban's there as well. Dereko's in chat. All you're sporting your Elite FPL badges there. I like it. Sean McGee. Ian Anderson, another shocking weekend of FPL. Yeah, we're here to talk about it, my friend. We are here to talk about it. Tobias is in chat. Prasoon Singh, hello, welcome, Prasoon. Pavel. You guys are mean with your surnames. Pavel Stavinoga. I hope that's correct. Tommy Mack, Rohit Nair, Jaden, Max Edwards. Welcome everybody to the stream. It's been a deflating game week for many FPL managers, with very few FPL assets getting point returns. We're talking about Sunday surgery. Is your team dead on arrival? Does it need the resus machine brought out and brought back to life? Because I know mine does. And I've just between me and you guys, I've actually done a transfer. All right.
Huh?
Yeah. Yep.
Goodness sake.
I've already done a transfer. But Steve-O, I just want to say, Steve-O, very quickly before we pursue this. I don't know if you've watched the video, but I put up that 2 minutes meltdown of Steve-O. And I put it down to 2 minutes because that was when you really started to perspire. And you were literally, oh crap, this is real now. The clock is ticking, and this I've never done that. I've never done a wild card 2 minutes before the deadline. I've never done it, and I was always wondering what it looks like, and it obviously looks like that.
Yeah, and after today, I wish I'd gone with AAA, which was literally the last second where if I'd have just been quick enough, if I'd have 10 seconds left and I would have made transfers, my main back three would have been. I think it would have been Peters, Bowley, and Matip. I think they were the three, and then I would have had AAA. Cy Bellamy asked in the chat in Discord, and for anybody who's watching this, we want to get callers on ASAP. Me and Jason have been speaking a lot over the last 24 hours, so we want to get you guys on air instead. So, well, we get you guys on air anyway, but we need to get you on tonight. But Cy Bellamy said, how did my team get on before my wildcard? Well, my wildcard team, I hadn't made any transfers. It would have been 37 points with Aubameyang and Saka left to play. So it's the same old BS, isn't it?
Wow. I mean, I mean, to just glaze over my team very briefly, shocking. 21 points. Could have been worse.
Well,
could have been worse. Could have been worse.
Before we talk, in all seriousness, before we talk FPL, your thoughts on the big game today? Man U won, Liverpool won. There was a game today.
Once again, VAR is taking the headlines away from this game. Now, I watched the game. I am obviously, as most of you know, I do support Manchester United. There was a foul on Divock Origi. Wow, I say it was a foul. It was a soft foul, but it was one of those where the player where Origi went down, and he did go down quite dramatically. And I think due to the manner that he went down, the referee was just like, "Get up, mate, get up." You've seen it every single week in the Premier League. You see it. And even you Liverpool fans that are watching the stream now, you're going to be nodding your heads. You see that week in, week out in the Premier League. The referee goes, "Get up, come on, play on." Yes, a little bit of contact was made, a tiny bit of contact was made, but only because Dan James broke on the right-hand side. And wow, you know, it was written in. It was gonna happen, wasn't it? I got rid of Dan James. What does he do? He scored. Oh, yeah. He gets an assist. Right, he gets an assist
and a bonus point.
Yeah, and a bonus point. But it's one of those where, because there was a goal of a result of a few seconds afterwards, Liverpool fans were up in arms about it. And to be honest with you, I I mean, the referee didn't give it first and foremost. If that De La Feo penalty wasn't given against Watford, which, if you haven't seen, by the way, is shocking. That De La Feo, that tackle on De La Feo, was it Vertonghen, guys? I think it was Vertonghen, wasn't it, going in on De La Feo? That is just mind-boggling. I don't know what the VAR referee was doing in that game, because that was shocking. So if that wasn't given, there's no way in hell that foul on foul in inverted commas was on Origi was ever going to be pulled back. So disappointing that we didn't get those 3 points from a very, I would say Liverpool just didn't turn up at all. I think Solskjaer surprised. Obviously, Twanzebe in the warm-up got injured. Rocco had to come in. And I think the formation that Solskjaer employed with the three centre-backs, I think really worked. And we were pressing really well in the first half. And we were the dominant team in the first half. And I was really, really happy with United's performance. And then the second half, it kind of waned a bit. We kind of went into our shell and we went back to the whole, right, we're not going to press as much. We're going to sit back. We're going to absorb the pressure. And it was a matter of time before Liverpool eventually got something. And it was Ashley Young again, shocking. I just how he maintains, how he's given the captaincy role at United and he retained to place in that team. I do not know. But anyway, yes, Ramsey Sinclair, Liverpool were rubbish today.
Well,
they were rubbish.
In all seriousness, so I am seeing that Klopp hasn't beaten United in 4 attempts.
Well, it's the history between it's not just Klopp. I don't think it's just that. I think even if you went back to the Liverpool glory years where they were winning European Cups, winning First Division, as it was back then, they still found coming to Old Trafford quite a bit of a hard fixture. I mean, they didn't have a great time historically coming to Old Trafford, and I think it's us and Man City. Us and Everton. It's Everton as well as another fixture that they don't like going to. So I knew that this game wouldn't be like free. Some people were predicting 3-0 Liverpool. I was confident that wasn't going to be the case.
Hold on a minute. We could have had Anurag, whatever his name is, Anurag on tonight. He predicted 5-0.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And I think that Liverpool were lucky to draw. Ramsey, I think it was a case of United. Like I said, they brought on their own demise. They kind of sunk into their own shell a bit. They invited the pressure on themselves, and it was inevitable. It was inevitable, unfortunately.
Tell you what, though, I just find it frightening that the history. Oh,
Mavid.
Oh no, he's got to be. It's David, isn't it? He's just playing around with his name. It's David Michaels.
David Michaels. It's Mavid. Yeah, if you like, we'll call him Mavid. Thank you, Mavid. That's very, 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 very kind of you. Welcome to the membership club, and enjoy your new fancy badge and emotes that we've painstakingly crafted for you guys. And we've also got some interesting videos, raw off-the-cuff videos that we've been posting in the community channel. Mavid, take a look at the community section of our YouTube channel and you'll be able to find the Members League code, which you'll be more than welcome to join. But yeah, going back to the game, a thoroughly impressive United performance for the majority of the game. I'm happy. The one thing about this game week I'm actually happy about that. And yeah.
I'm just looking over the history statistics, and again, they've come up trumps again. It just fascinates me. For example, in the Everton-West Ham game in the previous 6, there's been 4 clean sheets. Well, there's been another clean sheet in that. Villa, the statistic that came out of that, when Villa have won, so Villa have beaten Brighton only twice in 6, but when they have won, they've scored 3 goals. Well, yesterday, they did score 3, but one of them was ruled off by VAR. Yeah. In the Liverpool game, for example, Liverpool have only won 2 out of the last 6, 3 of them being draws. Just so mad.
The history is doing a good job at the moment. I mean, it's just the players, the FPL assets just aren't mean, the highly owned FPL assets just aren't doing anything at the moment. That's the issue.
Yeah.
What's my transfer, Chelsea flyer? I will reveal all on Thursday.
Just a quick plug for this morning's show as well. This morning I did a brief FPL breakfast show, but I genuinely had a surprise guest on. So for any fans of Davey FPL, he rang in, he came into the Discord, and we want to get you guys on Discord tonight, so please do. But Davey FPL just randomly showed up, and we didn't really talk FPL. It was great. It was. I just want to say that it was really, really enjoyable conversation between me and Davey, just talking all things podcasting and about real life football and how he's seeing the season going. So if you want to check that out, it's the last. He joined me for 40 minutes, Jason. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Yeah, I watched most of it. Apart from what.
Brilliant of him, and very, very good of him to join me in a very unofficial, off the record, so to speak, conversation on a live stream. It was really, really nice of him to do so. So, yes,
it's very good, very, very good.
Anybody in the waiting room? Because I can't be bothered to speak.
You don't want to talk about. You don't want to talk about your game week, Steve. You don't want to let the world know about your game week.
We did it yesterday, didn't we? I'd be more than happy to talk about my team. If
you didn't have any assets in today's game, then.
Mane and Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course.
Yeah, the wrong fullback.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So,
right, okay.
And then we've got, I was going to say Aubameyang tomorrow, but of course I haven't got him. It's Lundstrom.
You got Lundstrom tomorrow, like me, mate. We're in the same boat together.
Yeah.
I did see you talking to Davey FPL, and you got quite emotional about the whole everything that I do. Always,
it's true.
It's
true.
It always gets cancelled out by what
So
Jason does. And I'm taking a -12, and still, I mean, it's, to be honest, you are catching me. You are catching me. There's no two ways about it. Anyway, let's see.
Let's be honest here. The transfer that you've done, I think, is going to be Hudson-Odoi in for whoever. And the point being is that even if you went with, I think my main rant was the fact that it's the most bizarre transfers that you do that still come in. For example, McGovern, you just plucked out of a name out of the hat. Who's playing 4 million? Yeah, hold on a minute. This is on your free hit. Who's a 4 million playing goalkeeper? Oh, I'll just have McGovern. Concedes 5 goals, but still comes out with 50 points. You then get this particular game week. You bring in Ramsdale for Adrian. In a total of a -12, and yet Ramsdale and Rico get you a double clean sheet. I just don't know where this.
I offer a sacrifice to the FPL gods every night.
Yeah, points hits, take them. And yet, no matter what I seem to do, I just can't catch you. So it's very, very frustrating. It does infuriate me. It makes for great entertainment. I know it does, because like I said, I watched into this.
Honestly, mate, I love it. I love hearing you fuming about it. One of these days, it's gonna bite me. I know it is. But
I hope it does. Hope it does next week. If FPL Penguin made a point, is game week 10 happened yet?
Yeah. Let's get some callers on. Let's get some callers on. We'll talk about FPL Penguin. Let's start this show tonight with FPL Penguin. Remember, guys.
Today's game, shall we?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you remember, guys, if you're coming on tonight, please post your team in the team screenshots, unless you're in the Cash League and easy to find. Wow, we've got a new member.
Another member.
Yav Dimitrov. Is it Dimitrov? Dimitrov. Welcome, Yav. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you ever so much for your support. FPL Penguin, good evening. Welcome.
Hello, Jason. How are you?
I'm super. Thank you for asking. And how about yourself?
I'm good. After got an equaliser. I mean, sloppy game. Man United over us, and VAR. Everything kicked off.
Right. Well, I'm interested in hearing your opinion on this VAR, because let's pretend that you're neutral now. Okay, take your Liverpool hat off. I said it earlier on in the stream. Games across the country, games across the Championship, and across the Premier League, week in, week out, you see the very tiniest contact. You see a player go down really easy. You see the referee go, play on, come on, play on, up you get. And don't tell me I'm wrong. Purely because of that incident with Dan James bombing down the right hand side, whips it in. That's the only reason why this has been brought up, isn't it? Let's be honest. You've seen the replay. Come on.
I've seen the replay. I was just chatting to Aussie Boy about VAR, and after seeing, I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, that challenge, that VAR decision before Rashford scored. Was it VAR? I don't know, but that should have been disallowed. Rashford's goal. I mean, that on a foul.
How far back? The thing is, how far back do you want to go? Let's be honest now. How far back do you want to go? Because we have seen it in the World Cup. We did see him go back quite far. But let's be honest. How far back realistically do you want to go? Yeah, it was just before the build-up. I understand that. But the referee was stood. You watch it back. He was stood, 7 yards away? 8 yards away? I mean, he was looking directly at Origi at the time. He's like, no, carry on. And no one would have batted an eyelid if Man United hadn't scored. No one would have said anything. You saw Dan James get clattered twice. And I think we're getting to this point now where we're looking at VAR as the answer to things. And to be honest with you, it's supposed to be a tool to stop goals that are scored that are outside the rules of football. So I think it was designed to stop handballs and penalties that are being missed. I don't think it was designed to change the decision of a referee for something that happened in the defending team's half. That's my personal opinion. And this is not. I know it's easy to say I'm biased, and believe you me, I mean I saw that tackle right on Deulofeu yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. That was shocking. That was shocking. Watch that, Penguin. That is a travesty. That's a travesty. Honestly, it's such a bad decision. VAR, head gone. Honestly, head gone moment.
But can I just say quickly? I was saying to Aussie Boy before, why are they not introducing screens, like TV screens, for the referee to actually look with his own eyes close up?
It'll take too long. Apparently, it'll take too long for the referee. Oh. Yeah, it'll take too long for the referee to go over to the screen. And no, you're right. I've said it weeks ago. I was saying this. I was saying, why can't the referee go to the screen, look for himself? Because I'll be honest with you, the Mane goal, okay, that was handball. Okay, so the VAR got that right, in my opinion. It was handball. It was unfortunate because I own Mane, okay, and I would like to get FPL returns, but as a United supporter, I was very relieved. But I think that decision was correct. It was a handball. The tackle on Origi, I think the majority of people, especially neutral fans out there, would say, yeah, if that was a call back, I think there would be a bit of an uproar because that was soft, really soft tackle. And Origi did make a meal of it. He did go down like a bit. He was dramatic when he went down, and I think that's partly the reason why the referee just waved play on, because
I need to rewatch it. Sorry, I need to rewatch it.
Yeah, rewatch it. But if you look back, it's not full contact. Penguin. It's a brush to a calf. We're talking the same sort of thing you see in the penalty area when VAR says no, it's not clear and obvious. We've seen it, haven't we? We saw who was it? Was it Bernardo Silva or David Silva that had his foot trampled on? A few.
Oh yeah, Bournemouth, was it?
Yeah, and it was like, that's not clear and obvious error. The referee didn't, has not given it, so therefore we're not going to overrule. We're seeing this week in, week out now. But yeah, without making this all about VAR, let's talk about your game week. God.
I think I put my team in the screenshot earlier.
Right, yeah. VAR is a minefield at the moment. Right, let's bring it up.
I think I've got points at the moment. It's 17.
What are you on, sorry?
I've got 21 points, but I took a hit, so I've got 17 points.
Right, okay. And how are you feeling?
Still the same as yesterday. I need an Aubameyang hat-trick to make me feel better.
Well, at least you've got Aubameyang. I mean, if there's anyone if there's anyone out there that can salvage this game week, you would imagine it would be Arsenal. And with Aubameyang, I mean, looking at your team, it's just you got to kind of write this game week off, haven't you?
I saw you tweet to me before because you were shocked that I brought Trent in.
I was. I mean, I'm shocked that you did it.
I wanted to do it. It's a panic move. I did it because I was just annoyed after yesterday.
That's fair enough.
But I feel like it needs to happen, so I'm happy with it. I'm not going to regret it. So, once I get rid of Bissaka, so.
Can I ask, Penguin, did you see anything in Liverpool today to suggest that they're going to start keeping clean sheets? Because I'm just concerned that Liverpool are just going to be conceding a goal a game.
Well, the thing is, it was Alisson's first game back. It was a big game away from home. You know, it's not played for 2 months, 2.5 months. I mean, you know, I'm confident we'll keep the clean sheets. There's no doubt about that.
Sorry. That was Manu. No, my fault. My bad. Looking at someone else here.
Right. Anyway, so I mean, how's your mindset on this game week? We've seen a lot of people on the Twitter sphere. I mean, in chat, we're seeing people getting angry about as almost as if we're entitled to large point returns every week. Are you one of those people that kind of, you've done a transfer, you've taken Wan-Bissaka out, you brought Trent in? Are you one of those FPL managers that, you know, you're not going to be patient, you're going to just change things up straight away? Are you considering this a temporary thing, or are you thinking that something needs to change in your team?
I'm actually happy with the team that I've got now with Trent in. Not really. With Zinchenko, things have got to change with him, to be honest with you. I mean, I can't be playing this pet roulette, like Mendy starting and then Zinchenko's not starting. I can't be playing that. Either one of them starts next 10, 12 games. I think he'll be the next one going. Like, not this week coming for game week 10, but the week after, something like that. I could be having pet roulette happening with him and Mendy.
I'm surprised you took Wan-Bissaka out for Trent instead of Zinchenko for Trent, honestly. But I mean, you've done this transfer now. Let's hope it pays off for you. I mean, you've got players in your team. You're going to have a bit of a captaincy dilemma going forward, haven't you? Let's be honest. You've got Aubameyang, Abraham, Callum Wilson, and De Bruyne and Mane, all of which will be vying over your armband surely over the next few game weeks. Have you got a solid plan? Because we were talking about captaincy picks. Captaincy picks seem to be the be-all and end-all at the moment. Because of these low-scoring game weeks, captaincy picks are even more vital. Have you got a plan for your captain going forward with these heavy hitters in?
I was actually looking about half an hour ago at who to put as my captain. I was having this, and I've got a week to think about it, but this dilemma of De Bruyne, Abraham, Aubameyang, you know, and the two I'm probably going to look at is just De Bruyne and Abraham as captain for game week 10. But I mean, I've got some good choices there, so I can have a really good think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say that I read out Boona's comment. Boona, I'd love to have you come on. Please come on the show. Please. Anyone else lost complete interest in FPL now? ? I genuinely have. Boona, come on the show. Let's talk. But yeah, just there's a question from Mark. Okay, talk to me later on the stream. Okay, no worries. So any final thoughts, Penguin, about this game week? I mean,
just feeling low. Like,
talk to me about this as a Liverpool fan. Do you feel that you have lost out on points? We're lucky to get the draw, or do you feel that you should have got the win and that Mane shouldn't have had his goal this Sunday?
No, it was. I think it's a fair result. A draw, and I was hoping for a win, but my brain said a draw. But I don't think we've messed up here. I feel like we can go to Spurs and beat them. I'm saying it now. Go back to Anfield, beat Spurs, and then get 3 points there. We'll carry on what we did. We're still undefeated.
6 points, still 6 points ahead of City, and you know it's one of those. I think it was a very poor performance by Paul today, but you've got to admit United actually played quite well, and they had a game plan and they played well.
But Jason, then they're away at Norwich and
Pookie,
brilliant.
Pookie party.
And,
don't be silly.
They'll lose to Norwich.
Oh, don't be stupid. Right, we'll put money on that. We'll put a bet on that, Steve. I'm confident that we're not going to lose.
I brought even for everybody.
I'll buy you a blooming FPL. I'll buy you an Elite FPL tie. All right. Right, there we go. Right, there we go. Sorted. Right, well, thank you ever so much, Penguin, for coming on, and we'll talk again soon. Cheers, buddy. Thank you ever so much.
Cheers, Steve-O. See you.
Cheers, dude. Thank you. Let's get on G-Wiz. We haven't heard it from him.
Oh, G-Wiz is with us. G-Wiz. G-Wiz, good evening, my friend. How are you feeling? Hello, G-Wiz. You got yourself muted. Come on, unmute yourself. There we go. Talk to us, G-Wiz. Come on, talk to us. Press the unmute button. He's probably gone and made a coffee. That's what he's done. He's gone away and made a coffee. We'll go back to him. Oh, he's back. Here he is.
Error.
Oh, dear, G-Wiz. What was going on?
Schoolboy error, bruv. Schoolboy error.
Okay. So, are you let's find your team. Whereabouts?
Am I posting my team? Are you on drugs?
Whereabouts are you in the Cash League?
The same place I was last week, about 60th.
Oh, yeah, 63rd.
Oh, 63rd. Woohoo!
Oh, gee whiz, it just gets better and better, doesn't it, gee whiz? Come on, let's let it out.
Yeah,
I mean,
better and better if you don't take this game serious. Go on, Steve.
At least you got Loughton's 0 points coming off the bench for Otamendi.
Yeah, quality. There it is. There's the beautiful scene.
You've got to laugh. You've just got to laugh.
To be fair, at least I was one of those that played Rico, and I'm not getting him off the bench.
Well,
amen to that, my friend. Amen to that.
Oh, and look at that fabulous captain pick as well. Oh my days, this game just gets better and better.
we've seen Boona go into kind of like quit mode. We've seen Steve-O joke about giving up on FPL. I think you've got it right. You've got to take a light-hearted approach. You just got to laugh. You just got to laugh and say, God, that's football. You can't predict football.
I'll tell you what I did see that made me laugh was, so I use this method where I pick a captain where I use the easiest fixture of the week. Now, from the calculations, the easiest fixture of the week was the Chelsea game. I've got Mount and Abraham.
Yeah.
And some people might even have tomorrow, So out of those three options, I think I've picked the right one. Yeah?
Yeah.
Until I see someone with Hudson-Odoi as captain.
Wow. Yeah. Well, really?
Well, you should always go with the history. The history has come through for the last 9 game weeks, and it picked the right one again. Of the most popular captaincy picks, again, it came out on top. It said go with Sterling if you had Sterling, and
Steve-O,
should have gone with him instead.
Steve-O, I've got a stat for you. Aguero has never scored at Selhurst Park. I have.
Yeah, no, yeah, his statistics again versus his history versus Crystal Palace.
Wiz, when you coming in the game, mate, I'll bring you in, mate. I'll put you on my bench. What do you reckon you'll be? If you were to be in the game, how much do you reckon you'd be valued at?
Probably about 0.6 mil.
Well, you'd be one hell of an enabler. I'd definitely have you on my bench for that. You'd be third sub though. No offense. But yeah, oh god, it's been a painful game week. Yes, absolutely. But I'm looking. I mean, it's a healthy looking team though, isn't it, Wiz? That's the thing. That's the sad thing.
I don't know.
I've got
Otamendi. Not for me.
Well, I'm going to keep Otamendi. It's either keep Otamendi and Van Dijk, or swap them both out for Robertson and Tomori. I'm happy to stick with them two for now until I hear better news. Oh, and before I go, I just wanted to talk to that Man United one on the left with his biasness regarding the game,
biased, mate. I'm not biased.
Oh my days! Are you seriously telling me that you think that goal should have stood?
I'm saying that judging on VAR this season, yes. Because there's so much consistency with VAR not overruling a referee that's made a decision that, yes, it should have stood. If we were looking at VAR being the one that says, right, no, referee, you've made the wrong decision, that's a clear and obvious error, and basically say, right, we're taking that decision out of your hands, then, yeah, I'll be with you. I'll be like, yeah, I'll be like, yeah, that should have been wiped off. But
So
you know as
there's
well
no
as I,
point in having
you know
it
as well as I,
then,
yeah. Well,
There's
you
no
know,
point in having VAR then.
you know
If
as well
that's
as
the
I
way
do.
They're going to use it.
Yeah.
There's no point in having it, because if a referee makes a decision, whether that decision be wrong or right, and
Was it
VAR look
clear?
at it,
Was it clear and obvious? Was it a clear and obvious
don't
error
even talk
on
to
the
me
match
about that
official?
phrase.
Well,
Don't
unfortunately,
even
that's what the FA. Sorry, that's what the Premier League wants you to. That's what they say. We saw.
Clear and obvious. That's just their way of conning you into thinking, oh, as this referee made a mistake, let's watch a replay.
Wiz, if they're not going to pull up a referee that has not seen something in the box or not given a challenge in the box, like Delafeu, like was it David Silva that had his foot stomped on? I mean, we've seen it. We've seen referees not give penalties that should have been penalties, and the VAR will not step up, and it won't do anything. So if they're not going to do that, they cannot.
So
they can't
that
go
doesn't
back.
make it right, though, does it?
No. But it sets
right.
a precedent. It sets a precedent, unfortunately. And like you said, what's the point of having it? I completely agree with you. What's the point of having VAR if it's not stepping up and saying no, that was a foul? But if we're going to go on consistency, Wiz, then that goal should have stood. Because that was a soft.
Okay. I'll concede you on that point.
Yeah.
But what I'm really peed off about. Ooh, did you see that, Steve-O? I nearly saw then.
Come on.
What I'm really.
Get your ban like some others.
Let me know what you really feel. Come on, Wiz.
No. What really pees me off the most is, like, before the World Cup, they were saying about VAR this, VAR that, how it's going to ruin the game, how it's going to be beneficial to the game, exactly. And then what I noticed that they did in the World Cup that we don't do over here is look at the touchline screen.
Yeah.
Instead, they have their mates in some room like 400 miles away telling them, oh, that's an all right decision. Yeah, don't worry about it. Crack on, boy. Why not make the referee look at what them geezers are looking at and hold his hands up and say, oh, wait, you know what? Yeah, I didn't see that was a foul from the angle I was looking at.
I was saying this back in Game Week 2, Wiz. You can watch back the streams. I was saying it back in Game Week 2. I said, why haven't they got a TV screen? Why don't they go to the TV screen? I think they have got a TV screen. Why aren't they going to them? And I think the word was, I heard on the radio today on BBC 5 Live, I believe I heard the reason is because it'll take too long. It'll take too long for a referee. Honestly, and I was just like, "What? That can't be an official stance."
Hold on, Matt Brunton's agreeing with you. He says FA says it's waste too much time. Well,
no, I agree with you. What's the point of having VAR? But there needs to be a clear understanding of how far back. Does VAR overrule everything about a referee, or does VAR overrule something that happens in the penalty area when it comes to offsides or a goal decision only? And where do we stand on that as a footballing community, just as people that appreciate the game, knowing when VAR is actually going to step up and make the decision for the referee? Because at the moment, I'm not confident. As someone that appreciates football, I'm not confident that VAR is stepping up and making the right decisions at all. And I think a lot of people are in the same opinion. And I think they do really, really need to address this, because we're no longer seeing people arguing about the referee making mistakes, that have cost a team a goal by not giving a penalty. We're now seeing VAR decisions that have got all the information there in front of them. They've got replays, slow motions. They've got everything. They've got everything they need to make a decision, and they're still not doing it. And I think that's what's causing so much of this. So many arguments, basically.
No, I'm with you. I just think if you're not going to use the technology and correct decisions, and when you talk about going back how far, I would say you should only look at a phase at a time. So in the Man United game, that was all one phase, wasn't it? When the attack started to happen and the foul happened and then the goal scored.
The ball broke away to Jan James, and then the attacking phase pretty much started straight away after that. I agree. It was very, 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 very quickly afterwards that the goal was scored. But it brings into question, what is the purpose of VAR? when do they overrule the referee? Because I don't think have we seen it this season? Have we actually seen VAR? Correct me if I'm wrong, but have we actually seen VAR say no? It's the referee's got it wrong, and like we're not talking about an offside or anything like that, where it's been like a penalty or something. I don't think I've seen it. I'm not sure. I know they don't like doing it, and I think they should do it. I think they should do it. But Wiz, you bring up a very good point. I think a lot of people are really frustrated with VAR, myself included. Today, I think 1-1. Despite that, I think 1-1 is a fair result. I really do.
Yeah. If I'm unbiased, I would say, yeah, I'd agree. I'd have to agree with you. Obviously, I am slightly biased because I can't stand Man.
But where's that could have been your team. I mean, and it could have been, and I think this is where it comes down. This is where it all comes down to consistency, and they need to get that nailed down. And I don't think this is going to be the last time we discuss VAR. I've got a feeling. Cheers, Wiz.
I think you could be right about that one. Yeah.
Cheers, Wiz. Thanks, buddy.
Cheers, dude.
Catch you later, dude. Thank you. Well, thanks.
Listen.
Oh, he wants to make it.
Thanks for having me on.
No. Yeah, sorry, Wiz. Say again. Sorry, Wiz. What was that? Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, Jason, you're not learning from the master. You just get him gone. Move on to the next
move it. All right. Let's give him his final say. We'll bring in Ezo. I know Ezo's been waiting for quite some time. I think Discord may be having some problems again, so just bear with us on this. Hello, Ezo. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm happier today than I was yesterday. How did your team do, Ezo?
It's just another batting average week. I got 34 points with Aubameyang and Lundstrom still to play.
Yes.
So just over the average, but still not particularly happy.
It's you're not happy with 34 points?
No, I mean, it's just the fact that so many of
your
my
captaincy's paid off.
Well, that's for the first time of this game, like not game week. This, I guess, year.
Who's your subs?
Cantwell. Basically, the one who's going to come in for Chenko Cantwell can't come in because.
Yeah. So you got what? Lundstrom, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lundstrom.
Oh, there you go. You got 2 more players to go, and one of them being Aubameyang. So yeah, you're probably going to get 40 or more points this week. So I think you'll be getting a nice green arrow. So I don't think you need to be so sad because there's people out there. I'm talking about Boona and other people that have got sub 20 points right now.
That is very true.
Well, they're probably no. I don't think Boona's on sub 20, but I know there are people out there that have had really shocking game weeks.
Yeah.
And I don't think they appreciate you coming on being all doomy and gloomy with 34 points with Aubameyang yet to play. I mean, ultimately, he hasn't played yet, and yet he may not do anything. But I think you're going to be seeing a green arrow nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, let's count myself lucky, I guess.
Steve-O, you talk now because it's all been about me. What's your thoughts?
I just look at this team and I just think, why have you still got Lamella, Walker-Peters, Zinchenko? Who else was there? Firmino's a very differential pick here. What's with these differential picks? And whereabouts are you ranked in the world?
In the world, I was like 200k for a long time, and now I'm 1.5 million.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why.
Savage.
But no, with Firmino, I wanted the Liverpool player in, and with the midfield I couldn't kind of get Sattler or Mane in. And I thought not many people will have Firmino, so it's kind of one of those picks that if he does very well, which I think he has the capability to, then I'm going to be kind of one of a few people who actually, I guess, get those points. And yeah, Zinchenko, I need to get him out. Walker-Peters, I originally bring in for 1 game, and I haven't played him since. I just need to get him out, but also I'm looking to get out Lamella.
So, yeah, I mean, you've got a few things in there, like Walker-Peters, Zinchenko, Lamella. You need to... Have you got... did you use a transfer, sorry?
I think I've got a transfer saved up.
Well, you got 2 free transfers. Okay, well...
Yeah, I think so.
Lamella out, are you going to join the Hudson-Odoi army?
I don't want to triple up on Chelsea players.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't trust them.
Steve-O's just asked if you use your
Well,
wildcard.
Yeah, I already have. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, I don't know how you
It's
can
not
say
that bad of a team, Steve-O. Come on, give the man a break.
I'd get in Hudson-Odoi ahead of Lamella easily. Triple up on Chelsea attack, I think, is a fantastic idea for anybody. Looking at this specific team here, I mean, Lamella's got to get gone. Walker Peters,
Yeah, I
those
agree.
two specifically. I mean, I'm sure you could downgrade Lamella's 6 point. What have you got him in at 6 million?
Yeah.
So oh god, so that's a break even then on Hudson-Odoi. Walker Peters, who was you getting for Walker Peters? Then maybe I don't know, Matip or someone.
Yeah, probably. To be fair.
Depending on, I mean, how much
I
is
think
Walker Peters in your team? 5.5 still or 5.4?
Walker Peters is 4.7.
4 points. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, wow. Then you can't get Matip in then. Unless, how much money have you got in the bank?
I think actually, let me check now. I think I have a bit. I could be wrong. 0.8 million.
Oh, so you could upgrade if you wanted to a Liverpool defender if you really wanted to Matip or something. I mean, Zinchenko's another one. Maybe upgrading Zinchenko to what's his face, Mendy, if you wanted to keep a Man City defender.
I mean, I think with Zinchenko, I think I'm just gonna get rid of Lamella and Walker Peters today, or at some point this week, and I'm gonna risk it with Zinchenko again as he didn't play on the weekend. I'm gonna risk it one more time with him, and if he doesn't play next week against Aston Villa, I'll get him out for a different Man City defender, or at least try to.
Oh wow! So you've got your mighty Aubameyang in. You've got your Abraham as well. You got you got an interesting one with Firmino, but you've got Sterling and De Bruyne in your City attack there. I asked the other caller about captaincy picks going forward, and is Aubameyang and Abraham going to be vying over your armbands going forward, or do you think in Man City are the team to have now? They've recently returned to form and they're going to be chasing down Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, to be honest. It's tricky with captains because it's the way I look at it, it's literally potluck. But I think Aubameyang, he's got great fixtures coming up. Just for the next 8 game weeks, so he could be viable for a captain pick. And then obviously Man City, you've got Aston Villa and Southampton, so you could put De Bruyne, Aguero, Sterling on that. So yeah, I'd personally, and then with Abraham, Chelsea have also got some decent fixtures up, so you really just could do any of them for, but I'd favour possibly a Man City just because they're mostly reliable.
So you've got a route then, you've got a transfer route for your team then. Is that Lamella? Lamella is definitely going to be gone for you, yeah, and and perhaps Walker Peters as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of doing.
Yeah, well, I think it's not as bad as Steve-O says. I think you just need to get them out, and I think you've got interesting pick there in Firmino, who's saved a bit of money. He hasn't done anything, let's be honest. He's not been set in the world of light, but then who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But thank you ever so much for popping on, sharing your team with us and sharing your thoughts.
Yes, thank you.
But very quickly before you do go, what did you think about the game today?
I'm a United fan, and sorry. I thought like on social media there's like a lot of negativity about it, but personally I thought that United, we played quite well, especially in the first half. I thought we were controlling the game very well. The Rashford's VAR thing, it's like I can see why a lot of people think it's a foul, but personally I don't think there was enough kind of contact there. With the Origi and
I agree.
Yeah,
there's not, and also the referee's made a decision. He's already made a decision that wasn't a foul, so therefore, play on. We'll be talking a bit of VAR again, I'm sure, but it's a pleasure. Thank you ever so much, Izo, for coming on tonight. Cheers, and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
You just mentioned then, Jason, regarding the captaincy, and it's very difficult to choose, and Izo agreeing with you there. Well, I'll keep saying this. Stick with the history.
Well, why don't you stick with the history, Steve? Let's go from now
because
on.
I'm an idiot.
There you go.
That's why.
There you go.
That's why.
I'll say it right now. There you go. From now on, you stick with the history. Right. Let's get. Who are we getting on next?
Stein.
All right, Stein.
May actually be able to flame and speak to him
I
for a long
spoke to him. I spoke to him.
minutes.
Yeah, Stein. Your penny's in the meeting, my friend. You're with us on air. Can you hear us? Stein, are you there, my friend? Unmute your microphone. And a 3, and a 2. Okay, we'll hopefully go back to Stein. Let's bring on Aussie Boy. He's been waiting for quite some time. Aussie Boy, welcome on air. It's a Sunday surgery. Question: does your team need some help? Does it need chopping and changing?
Well,
Go to another stream if you want that help.
All I can say is get in Lallana. Come on.
Oh God.
Tell us about the game, yeah. Tell us your thoughts, Aussie Boy.
I just hate VR. In the waiting room when I was with Penguin, I was just going on a massive rant about it. I absolutely despise it. It just pisses me off.
Oh, language.
Oh, is that a bit? I'm sorry if that's a bit.
That's fine.
But yeah,
carry
my
on.
team.
Ban him. Out you go. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, my team is in team screenshots if you want to look at it. But
Whiz.
I've already made a move.
Let's have a look. Let's bring him up. Yeah, let's bring it up now. Sorry. You've already made a move.
Yeah, so Sonta, Callum Hudson-Odoi.
Right.
I wanted to avoid the price change, and Phil was in the hangout with me last night, and that kind of.
So Callum, so Hudson-Odoi. So Sonta Hudson-Odoi.
Then I'm gonna upgrade Cantwell this week. So I have 8.8 to get a midfielder.
So you got 2 free transfers, have you?
No, I'm gonna take a
you're
minus.
taking a -4.
And it's the last one for a while. I know I say that, but I'm gonna try my best to make that the last one for a while.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on maybe getting in David Silva? I saw someone mention he may be injured, but I can't believe this season he's got 2 goals and 5 assists. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
Is anybody going to speak? Or...
Wait, what? It cut out there for me. But
Yeah, Steve, what did you say?
I was just saying about David Silva. This season he's got 2 goals and 5 assists. Where on earth has that come from? Has anybody thought about potentially getting him in?
Well, he's in my considerations along Madison, Mahrez, Martial could be a stretch, but I don't think I'll do that. But yeah, it's in my considerations for which midfielder to bring in.
Yeah, you're not doing particularly great in our cash mini league, are you? You are 83rd, something like that.
Yeah.
86.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to fix the team so I can do it. But I'm not sure who it was with the captaincies. I know I just can't seem to hit one. So I'm not 100% sure who it was. I was listening to. It might have been Anish or someone, where they said about the captaincies, where they just leave it on someone. So I was thinking about that. So I'm thinking if Aubameyang returns tomorrow, I think I'm just gonna leave it on him until the fixtures, kind of the good run stops. Really, yeah, it's a good idea. I thought it was a good idea.
What's this? Salah not turning up today, in the sense of he's injured and everything. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, it's all right for me because I got 8 points for Rico off the bench, but he just wasn't. Klopp said he just wasn't quite right. But he hopes for Champions League on Wednesday. I think it was. He's hoping he'll be back for that. But yeah, I think he'll play on the weekend. So I'm not too worried about Salah.
Well, thank you very much.
Your team, it's sorry. I'll just look at this team, and you know what? It's a very similar situation to me. It's actually a perfectly good team. It's just whatever's happened this season, just very, very unlucky to be in the positions that you are.
He's got Rico coming on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm taking that.
Yeah, he's lucky. He's lucky. I don't have any sympathy. You got Rico on the bench. How dare you? God, what a player! What a player! Thank you ever so much, Aussie boy. Appreciate you coming on, buddy. And by the way, you were lucky to get a draw. Take care. See ya.
See ya, mate.
All these biased Liverpool fans coming on the show. God, what's going on here? I swear Wiz is a closet Liverpool fan. I don't mean it, Wiz. Don't worry. How did Rashi look today? Nice run of fixtures. He looked alright actually. Bruno, he did look really good. He looked pretty good. He was making a lot of runs, but again, United aren't finding him for a lot of the runs that he makes. Nobody mentioned McGovern. Yeah, don't mention McGovern. So yeah, let's move on to the next caller. We'll try Stein again. Stein's now unmuted. Stein, you're now unmuted. I'm hoping you're there.
I am here. Yes, I am.
Right. I can hear myself back. Can you just turn your speakers down slightly?
Okay. Let's have a look. Let's see. Excuse me.
Okay.
Is that any better?
I can still hear myself slightly, but no, actually, that's a lot better.
Hello?
Actually, that's a lot better. Yeah, that's a lot better. Stein, can you hear me?
Is that any... Yeah, I can hear you. I'm
Right.
just wondering if you can hear me.
I can hear you, mate. Yeah, we'll persevere.
Okay. Right. So, I posted my team, by the way.
Oh, you played with wildcard?
Yes, I have, Steve. I'm not panicking. I've got a player to come off the bench, which is Saka, and I've also got Lundstrom. So I'm hoping, regardless of that result, which way it goes, I can pick something up.
You happy with this wildcard team?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, Steve. I'm not really happy with El Ghazi. It was a real toss-up because I wanted to move my money around. So El Ghazi and Montoya were the guys. El Ghazi, Montoya and Fredericks are the guys I was thinking of moving around. However, I'm now thinking, should I have got rid of Rico? Because if I'd left it, that would have been 8 points. You know, Lundstrom would have still been on the bench. And I think I'd have been happy with that if the game week ended there. You know, whoever would have come off the bench, whether it be Lundstrom or Saka to cover Salah, I'd have been happy with that as well.
Talk to us about your choice of Kane.
Sorry,
Your choice for going with Kane.
Well, funny enough, you know, while I've done the wild card, I did have Aubameyang in up until Friday night. Took him back out, and I said no. It didn't seem right to take Kane out when he's got a home game against Watford. And I thought, I was expecting him to do something. I was expecting Vardy to do something and Abraham, but none of them did. So in a few weeks' time, it will be either Montoya or Fredericks going for Rico. El Ghazi will then be switched to what's the fella's name? Hudson-Odoi, and Kane will be switched.
You've just given me a clip there.
You are setting your team up on a wild card, aren't you, for multiple game weeks? I mean, look what happened with me. I did a wild card and then I wasn't happy with it, and I took a minus 16 and it kind of backfired. So you got to stick with the wild card, don't you?
Yeah, but I'm saying in a few weeks. So what I'm expecting is after 2 or 3 weeks, I'll know whether I'm moving Fredericks or Montoya, whether I'm downgrading him to Rico or not.
Right.
But that's that. I've got to think about that before I start making any other moves. So that is the starting point.
That's fair.
And then I'll have enough.
What made you stick with Salah rather than going with the popular choice of Mane?
Well, there's another way I could downgrade there quite easily, but you know, my choice was Salah. Like I say, off of your advice at the beginning of the season, Steve-O, I took Salah on. I didn't have him at the beginning. I think I went with Pogba at the beginning, then down to Martial, and then I've changed it all around once again. Went back with Salah, so I'm going to stick with him, and hopefully he'll come good. He's not doing too bad, and he started the season better than he started the first two when he was the top scorer.
Yeah, they missed him today.
Yeah, they did.
No, that's fair enough. That's a fair shout. Stein, I would love to speak to you longer, but wherever you are, it's the interference. There's radiation, there's background radiation going on. Somebody in chat was saying that you're on Pluto or something, making a reference to the static. But Stein, thank you for coming on tonight.
Okay, thanks very much. No worries. See you later, guys.
Cheers, buddy. Cheers now.
He's doing very well in the Cash Mini League.
Yeah.
Whereabouts
is he in the Cash?
29th, but he's not that far off fourth spot.
29th, but he's not far.
The league itself.
It's really tight. It's really, really tight.
So tight. Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Hopefully we can get an improvement on Stein's connection, because it's great to hear his opinion, but it's very distorted when he's talking.
But before I make my point, thank you, Ian Anderson, for becoming another member. And another member has joined the Elite FPL community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ian. That's much appreciated. I did see it flash up.
I just find it highly ironic in our Discord chat that all the popular members and the ones that are doing really well in the Cash Mini League or have been a member or an Elite FPL follower since day dot, their connections are rubbish. We can't ever seem to speak to them, or when we do speak to them, they vanish.
I don't know if he was using a headset or so, or I don't know what he was using to talk. A mobile phone, I presume. But Stein, get in touch with me on Discord if you'd like to chat about it, because we could probably get that improved somehow. Just using a hands-free kind of earphones with a microphone probably would give you a better voice than what you're experiencing at the moment. Anyway, but let's bring on another caller.
Can we bring on John Midder? There's a new name I don't recognise.
John Midder, are you there? John Midder, can you hear us? Hello, can you hear us, Jamida? Can you hear us?
He's not there.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm here.
Oh,
brilliant. Could you turn your speakers down slightly?
Down.
Yeah, I can hear myself back. It's echoing back. There we go. Testing 1, 2, 3. Are you on your phone? Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, I can hear myself. Oh, that's a bit better now. That's a bit better. Jamida, you're new, are you, to Discord?
I've been around for a while.
I've been around for a while.
Just haven't got on, but yeah, I've been seeing all the progress you guys have been making. It's really cool to come here after watching the weekend games.
And how are you doing in FPL?
I've posted my team in the Rate My Team. You can check it there.
Oh, right.
I mean, I guess I'm doing as good or better than others, but yeah, it's the last 2 weeks have not been really good for everyone, which I think is confusing to a lot of people. But yeah, it makes the game more open.
Are you a patient FPL player, Jamida?
Define patient.
Are you going to get rid of Son?
No. Actually, I think he's going to score against Liverpool.
Oh, so you are a patient FPL player then?
I guess so. I know. I just think after the Champions League final, especially if Spurs put in a performance against Liverpool, that it can really kick up the season.
Oh well, I think I must have to say that your captaincy choice on Haller this week is admirable. It's out there. You've got Vardy and Abraham sat either side of him, and you've gone with Haller. What was your thinking behind that?
Just seeing how Everton have been playing so far. I guess in this case I was a patient player because I had Sigurdsson up to like game week 5 or 6. Just trying to get those points. Yeah, so I just thought, you know what? I was for Everton, now I'm just going to go against them. So I just captained Allaire. I even got Yarmolenko specifically for this game.
Wow. Yes.
It didn't pay off at all. But yeah, I didn't think Abraham or Wilson would score actually either. So
You
I
played
just thought
you played Rico over
going to be a
Matip.
very random game. Sorry?
You played Rico over Matip as well.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't even realize I put the vice captain on him.
Well,
But I was so sure about a clean sheet for some reason. I didn't even question it. I put him in
I
straight.
can't believe that. Oh well, I mean it's paid off. Well done, 34 points.
Yeah.
Thank you, and hopefully next time we'll get you on. There won't be an echo, but it's a really bad echo at the moment. So we'll speak to you hopefully again soon, Jamida. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Cheers,
Keep up the
buddy.
good
Speak
work,
soon.
man.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
thank you.
Okay, let's bring in Pegasian. Oh no, Boona's here. Boona,
Good evening.
Boona, the man that we want to talk to.
The man that doesn't want to talk.
Yeah,
Let just let rip about Spurs, please. Just let rip about it.
I thought we would do well these past few game weeks, and obviously I tripled up on Spurs, but absolute nightmare, really. I mean, it's a nightmare to a point where I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed, and it's just frustrating from a fan perspective, even more so than FPL. Like FPL's taken a back seat for me altogether. I'm not too concerned by that. Like I've got used to being rubbish at FPL this season, so I'm not too concerned by it. But just watching Spurs these last few games that I've gone to Southampton and Watford this weekend, it's just depressing. Like we've forgotten how to play football. The players have just stopped playing for Poch, and there's no desire. Kane is obviously still dropping back, but he's got no. There's no creativity in the team to feed Kane or give him any opportunities. I don't think he had a chance all game. It's just absolute shocking. I was sitting there with Brew and I was like, what's this? Like, you guys saw me. I was like, forget this. I'm listening to the stream. I joined Steve-O's stream. I was like,
believe it.
I'd much rather be listening to this, knowing what the scores are elsewhere and hearing all that. It's just it's a nightmare, mate. Honestly, I'm getting rid of all three. At least two.
Hold that thought very quickly. I just want to say very quickly, thank you, Aussie Boy, ever so much for hitting that member button. That really does help support the channel. And thank you for being such a supporter of the show. It's been great to have you on and listen to your opinion. And, great hearing about your stories about visiting London all the way from down under. Thank you, Aussie Boy, again. And
when I was listening to the stream last night, I was screaming, Tate Modern! And I know you made the point about it. And I'm going to visit the Tate Modern sometime this week. It looks fantastic. So, yes. Boona, what do you genuinely put the problems down with Spurs? Is it a dressing room problem? Is it a tactics? What is going on?
No. It's not. It's not tactics. It's partially fatigue, but that's a minor part of it. The Poch has lost the changing room. The players, I think there's quite a few players now in the team that don't like each other, and it's so apparent. You can tell they've lost interest. They don't like they care anymore, and it's a bad time. I'd say that Liverpool will absolutely destroy us next week. However, the way football seems to be working right now, it just wouldn't surprise me if we somehow miraculously scraped a draw at Anfield. Honestly, it's just weird, but there's major problems. I'll be serious. Watford could have scored 5 or 6 goals. They should have.
You were very lucky with the point.
Oh mate, we did not deserve that point. We should have got battered. We really should have. We were that bad.
Let's move in this. I don't want to keep going on about it, but you may have heard the conversation that me and Wiz had about VAR in today's game, and obviously over the weekend it's been brought into question again. Obviously, Spurs have had the benefit in the past. Spurs have had a quite. We were going to say it all along. You get some, you don't. But Spurs have had a quite a considerate amount of VAR decisions go their way. Yesterday, we saw that was it Jan Vertonghen on Deulofeu. That as a Spurs fan, did you see the replay of that?
I didn't see.
Hold on, sorry. Yeah. Sorry to interject. We have another special guest in the chat. It's the main man, Andrew Fong, spelt with an F. Morning from Australia. Finally moved into my new place. I had to wake up for 2:30 a.m. to watch this lackluster Liverpool performance.
Wow.
Still happy with the point though. 3 bonus points for Robbo. What the... Andrew Fong, we are desperate is a strong word, but we are really wanting people like yourself that are doing exceedingly well in our Cash Mini League to come live on air.
And do you know what, Steve? It might have to be a breakfast show, because I am I'm very mindful that people in Australia possibly can't come on a call in at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. Maybe probably later than that now, probably 8 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, I mean, certainly on a breakfast show, if you can make it on, we'd love to hear how you feel your season's going and how you're flying high in our Cash Mini League. I'm sure you're very excited about. But yeah, it's great to have you. Great to have you with us, Andrew, at such an unsociable time of day.
Sydney Hammer, another new member, and also a member of has only really just started watching our stuff, I believe. Or anyway, the point being, we've actually got a very high amount of people from Southern Hemisphere, from South Africa, and from Australia that tune into the show, and some of them come on live when we're streaming, and we're really grateful for that, because we know it's really hard for you to be around, especially after all the games have been played. We really do appreciate your support, and that's why we're trying to do these breakfast. Well, Steve-O's doing these breakfast shows. I'm working, unfortunately, but Steve-O makes a very good effort into doing these breakfast shows for you to come on and speak. But Boona, going back to this VAR Tottenham incident. In a nutshell, are you happy with VAR? Yes or no? That's the question.
Oh no! I hate VAR. I didn't actually.
Just while you continue chatting, I want to just whenever you want to answer this point as well, can you let the audience know what the experience is like when VAR is happening as well?
Yeah, exactly. In the state, because I've not been at Old Trafford yet, and I have, when it comes to VAR, I haven't been up to Old Trafford to see it happen. What's the atmosphere like? That's a really, really good question, Steve.
It's a bit weird, to be honest, because you kind of don't know what's happening, but at the same time, I think fans have gotten used to the fact that 9 times out of 10, the referee's decision isn't overturned, so you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen. But yeah, it's a bit odd. But whilst we're on the topic of that, I didn't actually watch back the Jan Vertonghen foul, but I looked at Brew as soon as that happened and said, "How that's a penalty? How is that not a penalty?" I've not watched it back, but it looked a blatant penalty.
Like if there was a rule book for a referee to decide, like if there was like an example, a perfect example of a penalty, that would be up there, my friend. That would be up there.
I hate VAR. I think it's shocking. I think it's ruining the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, moving back to your team, you've got the 3 Spurs in. You mentioned earlier on in the chat that you're feeling like giving up. I'm sure that was just in jest, but let's be honest.
I have given up, mate. I've lost interest.
You can't give up after 9 game weeks.
I've lost interest so I've given up in the sense that I am no longer overthinking my transfers.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just shocking. I'm really tempted to get rid of both Son and Kane. Then I looked at the fixtures, but then I need to stop looking at the fixtures because that's what I did 3 weeks ago.
Do you think that this is maybe an obvious question, and please take it the right way, but do you think that you being an ardent Spurs fan has led to you having Kane and Son in purely because of your love for Spurs, as opposed to actually being a level-headed FPL manager, where a lot of people have unloaded on Spurs weeks ago and aren't interested in owning anyone with a white shirt? I mean, myself, Son, I was very persistent and stubborn with him, and I mean, obviously that's not paid off, and I'm looking to offload him as well. Do you think that if you weren't so emotionally attached to Spurs, you would have had those players in?
No, probably not. But then at the time, I felt it was. I didn't think it was such a crazy decision, only because the fixtures for the last 3 games were Southampton at home, Brighton away, and Watford at home. They were 3 good fixtures. It wasn't me putting 3 Spurs assets in for like teams in the top 10, in the league. So Yeah, I guess it was maybe a little bit over the top, but in previous seasons that could have easily paid off. But the team's just lost it, mate. Honestly, it's just yeah.
So you were saying that you're going to just getting Kane and Son out for -8.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, joking aside, I look at this team. I think the team's fine. It's just 2 players in this. Well, there's 3.
Kane to
There's
Aubameyang.
Cantwell. Yeah, you got 1.3 in the bank as well. Get rid of Kane.
You can do Kane to Aubameyang.
Yeah.
Son. Could you find a way in possibly doing Kane to Aubameyang, Son to De Bruyne?
So one sec. Who's Aubameyang got next week?
Crystal Palace.
Yeah. So the transfers that I'm thinking to make are Kane, Son, and Cantwell to De Bruyne, Maddison.
Oh yeah.
And maybe even Vardy or maybe even Rashford. Like I don't no one's got him, but his fixtures are pretty decent.
I think just hold fire on Rashford. Okay, he's been playing a lot of games. He needs a rest, and he's playing in a United team that aren't creative in midfield. And
look at those fixtures, mate. Norwich, Bournemouth, Brighton, Sheffield United, and Villa.
Rashford makes the kind of runs that De Bruyne would have a field day. Honestly, if Rashford was playing for City or Barcelona, like I heard in commentary earlier on, he'd be getting 30 goals a season. I'm confident of it. He's great at running off the shoulder of defenders. He's brilliant at that. But the problem is, United's midfield is just not seeing the runs. They're not creative enough, and unfortunately, I think that's why he's suffering at the moment in terms of not only his FPL returns, but I think that's partially the reason United's suffering at the moment as well. I mean, today was a brilliant cross from Dan James from the right hand side, whipped it in. I mean, if we saw more of those sort of counter-attacking moves, then I'm sure Rashford would probably score more goals. But I don't know if I'd be jumping on him just yet. I think it's way too early.
So yeah, I could go Maddison, Vardy, De Bruyne in. Gives me a pretty strong front 7. But I will wait to listen to Steve-O's history, Leicester versus Southampton. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, have you got any final thoughts, Boona? I mean, don't just relax and don't think too much about your transfers. Absolutely, don't overthink. I think that's part of the problem that I've had. Is that I've tried to be clever, I've overthought, and look what happened to me. I've been taking point hits here, left. I mean, I learnt my lesson? And I'm not going to take a hit this week. I'm not going to take it. I promise you now.
I mean, I always say this is like a joke, but I'm kind of being semi-serious. You're a rival at the end of the day. You do whatever you need to do, because I need people like you to be taking hits every single week, and I just want to be trying to catch Jason, Boona, G-Wiz, whoever, just to get to that 4th spot in our Cash Money League, but it just ain't happening.
I think Lundstrom's going to bail me tomorrow with a 21-pointer. I've got faith. I've got faith, boys. But yeah, no. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, if anyone else is having a bad time of things at the moment, I feel your pain. But yeah, cheers, guys.
Thank you, Bruno. Thank you for coming on as well. Thank you.
No worries. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah, in Anderson in chat is saying, have we hit record viewing?
No, we haven't.
We don't know.
No. Record figures is 380 something.
We almost we're pushing 400. We were like 387 or something. Yeah, that was the highest. But we don't. Not that we care, to be honest. We'll talk with 5 of you.
I was talking in front of 10 people this morning.
There you go. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference to us. It's just easier for us to read your comments, to be honest with you. 21-pointer.
Ray Joyce is here. Morning.
Ray Joyce. Welcome, Ray. How you doing? Roll on Game Week 10? Absolutely. Let's forget about Game Week 9 and Game Week 8 and Game Week 7. Let's move on to the next caller, I think. Who we've got? We've got Crazy Jack in there waiting to come on. Crazy Jack, good evening. You're live on the FPL podcast. The Elite FPL podcast on Sunday Surgery. How's Game Week 9 treating you?
Got Cantwell coming off the bench. Nice. It's been alright.
Cantwell
you got Lundstrom and Cantwell.
Yeah, but I I got my secret weapon tomorrow.
Lacazette.
He's gonna be explosive.
Well, you were the man.
A secret weapon.
You were the man that was put a persuasive argument in my head about Lacazette, and again, I know you've said it before and you've said it again. I want to hear it for the 1,000th time. Tell the audience why you put your faith into Lacazette.
Consistent. He's gonna be up front. He's a beast. The fixtures are good. It's Lacazette. Yeah. No, oh sorry. I'm still just coming down. I've been out since I've had a long day. Yeah.
Well, when you got back home, or however you were viewing the Man U Liverpool game, however you heard about it, what were your thought processes when it ended 1-1, and you also found out that Salah wasn't playing?
You're cutting out for me. I can't. I heard like.
What was your thought processes when you saw the game? Obviously, the team news of finding out Salah wasn't playing in that game, and obviously the game ending 1-1. What's your thoughts on today's game?
I was a bit like, oh mate, really? I was a bit gutted about the Salah thing. I thought it was the right result in the end. I thought like it deserved to be a 1-1. That VAR decision. I mean, that's the thing. I was watching. Because I was up this morning watching the rugby. Like, I don't understand why they don't do the TMO, like what they do in rugby, the TMO. Like, if you could hear, if they did what they did. Oh, sorry, one sec. Excuse me. If they did what they did in rugby, where you could hear what the assistant referee was thinking about regarding the decisions, I think a lot less people would care about the VR decisions. Because, like, when you're watching the rugby, you can hear what a fourth official is just thinking about regarding the decision, whether it should be like a goal or no goal. But I don't understand.
Well,
they're saying that obviously Bellamy in chat is saying he's got a good point. Rugby is a lot more stop-start, a lot more. There are more pauses in rugby that last a lot longer than typically in football. And generally speaking, you don't get penalised for time wasting in rugby because there's no real time limit on resuming play. But no,
go on.
No, I agree. I've said it. I agree with Wiz as well. Earlier on, it came on. We don't want to keep going on about VAR, but unfortunately, it is an issue, and I think they do need to use those TVs on the side of the field. They really do. It just looks a lot better when the referee makes a decision.
I'll tell you what frustrates me is the fact that it worked perfectly in the World Cup. Within reason, it worked fine. And it's like, just do exactly the same this year. Because if they didn't do it in the World Cup, then in some ways you you think to yourself, well, it's a learning curve, isn't it, what they're doing this year? They're going to learn from their mistakes, and then next year they're going to make it perfect, just like it is in rugby, cricket, etc. The problem is that they've had the World Cup. It worked fine. Comes into this season, it's just been an absolute disaster so far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, it should just I think the main point of it should be like, if the refs miss something, the guy should be like, oh, do you want to check this out? He puts it on the screen and the ref decides. Like, the guy shouldn't decide it in the box. Like, the guy should be like, oh, here you go, you might have missed something, do you want to check it out? And the ref decides whether it's a yes or no. Like in the rugby today, the ref missed a blatant elbow to the face, blatant missed decision. That's a definite penalty. But in football today, like, I don't think it was a freak. I don't think it was a foul personally.
Well, that was a question I wanted to ask you actually. Who do you support? Do you support anyone?
I would say Manu, but I haven't really followed football in ages. Like, the last time I've really followed into football was like
right. So you don't think it was a foul then, because the referee saw it. There was contact made. Let's be honest with you. There was contact made. Rigi goes down. Referee says not enough to be a foul. Play on.
Yeah, like,
is that good enough? Is that good enough?
I mean, yeah, like, the ref was happy with it. It wasn't like an absolute dirty tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I thought, yeah, Rigi was just trying to like
make the most of it. He was making the most of it, wasn't he?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, the ball was going away from him. He got enough. He was like, oh, I'll just go down. And no, I don't think that was enough. Like, if he proper caught him on the leg, then yeah, it's fair enough. But yeah, like, if it was a proper caught on the leg, then I agree. Like, it should go that far back, because that did result in the counter attack. But no, I don't think it was a foul.
Well, Here's a question for you. You've just said that you're not really much of a football fan. Number one, so why do you play fantasy football? Number two, you've become a regular caller on the Elite FPL, and we welcome you. I'm just surprised that you play the game if you're not such a football fan. What makes you play fantasy football?
I think he's a football fan. I just don't think he's a specific team fan.
I enjoy football. Like I haven't really. I don't know. It's weird. I've always liked fantasy football. I just thought I'd give this a go and enjoy watching this. But yeah, I would still say I don't say because I just sound like a glory hunter now. But no, I would say Man U's my team. I know that sounds very glory hunter.
Well, not anymore. It's not. It's fine.
How long have you been playing the game for?
How
long have you been playing the game for?
I think this is my second season. So like this is the first one.
Oh, I see. Not long then.
No. That's what I mean. Not long. Well, I mean, I came back to it after like 6 years, but no, like I've enjoyed it quite a bit. I've enjoyed it a lot. My friends like, oh, let's make a team together. It's like, oh yeah, let's go for it. But no, I've enjoyed it a lot, and yeah, I just came across this, and I've enjoyed this a lot.
I tell you what, you're not clouded by any team allegiances if that's the case. And playing FPL, you can't have team allegiances. We just saw it with Boona. He's gone with 3 Spurs, and that's really. I mean, the fixtures on paper were good, but something ain't right in the dressing room, and it's burnt him. So who knows? You might have the advantage over the typical FPL player. We've had people in the past saying, I'm not owning Salah or I'm not owning Mane because I hate Liverpool, and vice versa. And it's just like, well, you can't play the game like that. You can't cloud your selection process. But no, thank you.
Yeah, go on. I mean, I would like a Man United player, but like.
Yeah, well, I would love him. Really. I would love to bring it. Well, I had Dan James. Look what happened there.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it a lot, and that's. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you ever so much to Crazy Jack. We look forward to hearing from you again. And that's a rugby. You are a rugby fan, aren't you? Yeah, you go.
Oh, yeah,
there you go. Yeah, I looked at your logo. Yeah. Yeah, well, no, but one thing I will say about rugby, they are doing it right. They are doing it right in the terms of the officiating of the games. Football have got a lot to learn from rugby in that respect.
I mean,
but that's a whole new conversation now.
I would say if you could at least hear what they're saying when they're talking about it, I think a lot less.
Oh no, the Premier League would never want that. No.
I think they'll put a lot less people.
There's difference. The difference in rugby is players don't answer back.
Oh yeah.
All right, that's the difference. Absolutely. Anyway, thank you ever so much, Crazy Jack. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, dude.
Let's bring in Lewis Kirkby.
Lewis Kirkby
is a new name. Louis Kirkby.
Hey, you all right?
I'm super. Thank you for asking, Louis. Is it Louis or Lewis?
It's Lewis.
Lewis. All right. Sorry, Lewis. Right. So, Lewis, have you posted your? Yeah, you have.
I have.
You're all prepared. You've posted your team. You've had a very, very good week. 34 points.
Yeah.
34 points with Aubameyang yet to play. Even though your captaincy blanked, how are you feeling?
Yeah. Honestly, considering it was a poor game week for everyone else, well, most people, I think I did all right. I'm very happy with Robertson and Jimenez. Last week I had Pookie in, and I transferred Pookie for Jimenez just as a little punt because Wolves have some good fixtures coming up, and that's paid off already.
Mm-hmm. No, Jimenez is a great shout. I think there's going to be a lot of people transferring him in. To be honest with you, his fixtures are good, and he's a great player. He was unlucky, very, very unlucky, not to get more than one goal. And
oh yeah.
No, I'm just going to ring Steve-O back because for some reason he's cut off. I'm going to try ringing him back now. Just give me a second. Hopefully Steve-O's back. Yeah. Well, here we go. Hey, Steve-O, welcome back. We've got with us a new caller. I don't know how much you heard of that. We've got Lewis. Sorry, Lewis.
I heard him, not you.
You heard. Yeah, you can still hear him, can't you? In Discord. But yeah, we've got his team up here. Steve-O, what do you think of his Jimenez pick and his team overall? I think that's a very, very good looking team. I like it.
When did you get Jimenez?
I got him in last game week. I transferred him out for Pookie Transferred him in for Pookie, sorry.
Oh, so ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Ahead of it.
I've done that quite a few times this season. A few game weeks ago, I got Otamendi in for that 15-point game week when he was at about 0.8 ownership.
Yeah. How well are you doing this year? What overall rank are you?
I'm not sure it's updated, but before this game week, I was 500k, so I'm assuming I've got a green arrow.
Oh wow!
Oh, you would have. Yeah, you would have got a green arrow.
Yeah, 445k right now.
Wow, that's very good. Very, very good.
Team's very bandwagonish, so to speak. You know,
Yeah.
Jimenez, Abraham, McGinn, Mane, Mount, De Bruyne, of course. I mean, the only quote-unquote differentials is Robertson, and that's
Yeah.
about it. Like, you don't see Robertson in anybody's team at all whatsoever, and yeah.
I mean, when I look at Robertson this season, I mean, he's not done bad, and when I've seen him play, he's creating chances. He's creating plenty of chances, and I thought he was going to be on the end of a few assists, and he's got one today, a few bonus points.
What? 1 second. See you later, Aussie boy, mate. Enjoy your flight back, and safe travels. Yeah, I mean, your team is very, very nice. I mean, I'm not a fan of Robertson. I won't make any beat around the bush, but yeah, he's again Liverpool's fullbacks. You know, amongst the amongst the points as well. I think looking at that team, where can you improve that team in your opinion?
McGinn's got some really tough fixtures coming up, and I do have obviously I've got a free transfer, so I'm looking to get him out for maybe Hudson-Odoi.
I was just about to say.
Yeah, but I don't really have the money to do that. I would have to take a -4. I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's worth the -4.
Nah, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think you have got Otamendi, so you don't have to play McGinn.
Yeah. I mean, I am looking to get Otamendi out, to be honest. I don't think City will keep too many clean sheets still. I'm not confident in their defence.
Who would you replace Otamendi with?
If I was going to take a -4, I'd go McGinn to someone cheaper and Otamendi to maybe Bolly or Doherty. I think Doherty's looking like a good differential.
If you can afford Doherty, great shout.
Yeah, he's a good differential. I've been looking at him recently.
Not interested in any. Obviously, we were talking about Chelsea attack. You're not interested in their defence at all.
Nah.
No, it's fair shout. It's the same as Arsenal. You wouldn't be interested in any of their defenders either.
Tierney, I think Tierney's looking like a good shout. Obviously, he's yet to play a league game, so we'll have to see how he does. But I think he could be a good pick.
Could be. It's a wait and see for me.
Question for you, Lewis. I'm detecting an accent. Clearly from up north. Where are you from, and who do you support?
I'm from Preston. Well, I don't fully support anyone, but if I was supporting someone, I would be a United fan. My entire family is Liverpool fans, but I'm a United fan.
And on that note, today's game, what's your thoughts on it? How do you take the headline of VAR with that Rashford goal? Build up?
I've seen a lot of people saying that VAR needs to be removed. I don't think it needs to be removed. I think it needs to be fixed. Some of the decisions are a bit. They're just dodgy. VAR was implemented to reinforce decisions and obviously overturn wrong decisions, which it's not doing. So I just think it needs to be fixed. To be honest, I think they need to just go over it again and redo it a little bit.
That's a fair shout. I mean, I think you're right. This stream never goes offline, says Simeon Batchelor in chat. But I can assure you that we do take comfort breaks every now and again. But we do try our best to keep the entertainment flowing.
If you don't like it, go away.
There are other streams to watch on YouTube. Right. So Louis, how did you find? How long have you been a member of the channel and of the Discord? Out of curiosity.
I've been a member of.
Sorry, Lewis.
No, so honestly, I didn't even notice you said it. I'm used to it.
Sorry, mate.
It's all right. Member of the Discord for about half an hour.
Oh, brilliant.
So I've been watching since the start of this season. This is my first ever season playing FPL.
Oh, wow, and you're doing really well for your first season.
Yeah,
Top
brilliant.
10%, top 10% of players first season. I mean, ultimately, so you've joined Discord only today. You've been watching the show since the beginning of the season, roughly. Why today? Because we say it pretty much every stream. Come on to Discord, blah blah blah. Why only today?
I don't know, honestly. Honestly, I couldn't tell you, to be honest. I just thought today, you know what, I'm going to jump on.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's it, really.
What do you think? What do you think of Discord? What have you seen so far? I mean, we've got quite a community.
Yeah, it looks good. Honestly, I've been looking for a few of the different things for Discord, and yeah, it looks good.
Excellent.
You just said it's. You said it's. For how long have you been following Elite FPL for? Just of interest.
Sorry, you cut out there.
I am making a clip of this, everybody. It's from Extras. It's Andy Millman speaking to a particular individual, but you'll understand.
Can I translate?
Elite FPL.
Shall I translate?
Yeah, please do, Jeff.
Yeah, you can translate if you want.
What was the question, Stevo?
How long have you been with the Elite FPL YouTube channel for?
Since the start of this season.
So, okay, and what got you to discover us?
Just typing in FPL on the search bar. I was just looking for any tips or anything, and I saw one of your streams. I watched it all, and I was like, wow, these have got some really good information to offer and some good entertainment. So
I'm just it just fascinates me genuinely, because we're not your everyday show. We go on for literally hours, and people like yourself keep coming back and back and back, and it'd be interesting to just get some live feedback from yourself as to why do you keep coming back to the stream.
It's just to get different opinions, honestly, because obviously I look at transfers myself and thinking, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? And then watching a show like yourself, it just gives me other opinions.
We just want to, like we've said it all along, we just want to create a conversation, an FPL conversation. We're not going to just give you a yes or no answer to everything. Yeah. I mean, and to be honest with you, if you're looking for the answer to everything, then you're going to be very disappointed. Especially with our channel, we're not that sort of channel, and what we get from the community is everything. So because the community pretty much makes the channel what it is. Without the community, it would be nowhere near what it is today. And no, we're just grateful that you've chosen to come onto Discord today and have a chat with us, because you're doing really well. You've got Aubameyang to play tomorrow, and it's going to be another green arrow for you. Well, it's going to be a great green arrow for you, and you're going to be well within the top 10%. So congratulations, and I look forward to catching you up if I can.
Thank you.
Cheers, Lewis. Thank you so much. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, both of you. Thank you.
Oh, Juggernauts. We've got to get on Juggernauts.
Right, Juggernauts.
That's a special guest.
Juggernauts is currently deafened and muted in the Discord. If you can hear us, Juggernauts, please unmute and undeafen yourself, and we'll hopefully have your say live on air. That's amazing just to hear someone that's been with the show from the beginning of the season and then today decides to come onto Discord and have a chat with us.
Just address Simeon's point, making a point about jokingly just saying I should go on AFTV, but thanks to Dan, and I know Dan's waiting in the waiting room. Dan mentioned a point about Arsenal Fan TV and about a mental health mini video that they did. And anyhow, the point being is that I mentioned it to Jason prior to the show going live, but if anybody's seen it, there was an individual on there. It's not one of the guys from Arsenal Fan TV. It was just like one of the presenters talking about mental health and social media. But I was just watching his little bits and pieces, and I just thought, my goodness, that's what me and Jason do. He's set in basically like a radio studio that he's done. He's advertising Discord and everything, and I was just like, oh my goodness, it's us. But Juggernauts, you're here.
Are you eating potato chips, Juggernauts?
No, I'm not. I think it's my beard.
Oh, it's your beard. Oh, it's your beard again. Okay. How you doing, Juggernauts?
I'm alright, guys. How are you?
He's loving life. because he listened to the history. I told him.
Oh god,
He's now up to 5th in the Cash Money League.
See, Juggernauts, you're getting cheats from tips, cheats, and codes on how to play FPL from Steve-O. You're beating him at his own game. How do you feel?
I am beating him in his own game, man. But it's been a terrible game week though.
It has, isn't it? It has been a game. Let me just bring your team up. Sorry, Juggernauts. I'm way behind. I'm doing really bad at the moment.
So for everybody watching this now, the Cash Money League that we take seriously, Juggernauts is 5th, 29,000th in the world.
Unbelievable.
Doing exceptionally well. He is one of the few advocates of the history who's captained. Go on, tell him, Juggernauts. It's your platform.
Yeah, I nailed it again. It's a poor week, but yeah, I nailed my captaincy again.
Yeah, but hold on a minute. Let's be honest here. Genuinely, if you hadn't gone with the history and you went with someone like Mane, you'd have been kicking yourself. And the fact that you've gone with the history for the 9th game week in a row.
Exactly. I went with the history this game week again. Yeah.
If Juggernauts, you win the overall game, and then you go and do all these interviews on various other platforms, you're to mention this show and you're to say the only reason why I'm here is because of Steve-O and Jason's history.
No. Steve-O's history. So I'll give you that. That's Juggernauts, man. I think that you're having an absolute blinder of a season. I look at that team, and you've still got Haller in your team. You've got Son.
Why Roberto? We talked about it yesterday. Why did you bring Roberto in?
Oh my god!
I had Adrian, right? So I had to take Adrian out because he was right. So I thought of bringing Roberto because West Ham, they concede a lot of shots, right? So that's what.
Wow, it paid off, didn't it? Bonus points
and
saves.
He got 9 saves, yeah.
Can you tell me how to set my team up next week? Can you tell me how to set my team up for next week? Because you just seem to know everything. You just seem to know everything.
Honestly, I made a transfer already too early, and I'm kind of regretting it. I brought in Haller I brought in Jimenez for Haller, but I'm really thinking if you're considering getting any guys for next game week, I think if you want to double up, you can double up Marshall and Rashford.
Well, I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Exactly. You don't know. People wouldn't do that, right? Exactly. People wouldn't do that. Exactly.
I just want to quickly read out. Vince Chapman has become a member of the stream. Yay. Vince is very, 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 very much appreciated. Thank you for your support. Oh, there you go. We appreciate you, Vince. Honestly, we do. Yeah.
Thank you.
But Juggernauts, Son is in your team. You've done the Haller to Jimenez. I think that's Haller to Jimenez is brilliant, as Steve-O would say. Son is in your team. Are you not thinking of possibly getting rid of Son, are you, for a -4?
I thought of getting rid of Son, but considering Spurs, and I think Son is the lethal weapon Spurs have, right? So I'm like, you know what? I can give him another, because if he drops a haul, it's always massive. So I know they're playing Liverpool next, the top fixture, but yeah, I'm gonna hold on to Son. I thought of taking him out, but I'm gonna.
No, I think it's sensible. I think it's sensible. I
was considering bringing in Marshall, and because I don't like holding on to players with too many ownership, right? So I thought of taking out. I'm considering taking out Mount or Marshall.
Martial? Why Martial?
Don't know. Martial. He's just come back from injury. He played. Came on late on in the game. Didn't impact the game much. I think that it's again. If you envision something happening with Martial at United, him going on a streak of form, then yeah, you could be well ahead of the curve. But Mason Mount is looking really good at the moment at Chelsea. It could bite you. It really could. I'd be sooner moving Son out personally. I'd rather do Son to Martial than Mason Mount to Martial. I know it sounds crazy, but But yes,
Yeah,
I
but
wouldn't do it for -4. I wouldn't do it for -4. You've done your transfer now. You've done your
yeah, I've done
Haller.
my transfer
I was a
already.
stick. I
Yeah,
would stick. If you're gonna do it for -4, that's not a good idea. If I would say if you hadn't have done the Haller transfer, then you could have done it. But now you've made that
yeah,
decision. I think taking a hit now for those players isn't worth it.
isn't what it's true. And Jason, you took a -12, man. What's up?
I'm over it now. I'm over it. I'm over this bout of hits that seem to just be amalgamating into one big disaster. So I'm over it now. Now Steve-O's breathing down my neck. I've got to be a bit more smarter with my
conservative.
a bit more conservative. Block him a little bit for bringing in Hudson-Odoi.
Well, our teams are exactly the same, aren't they?
Yeah, but the teams are good. The teams we all have good teams. It's just able to. Yeah.
Juggernauts.
Yeah.
Well done. And what do you think of the game? Finally, before we move on to the next caller, what did you think of today's game between Liverpool and United?
Yeah, I thought United stood up to the test, man, and yeah, I think honestly, it's in the game now. We can't really do much about it. But yeah, I thought United came out with a good result.
Yeah, I agree. Juggernauts, thank you ever so much. We'll speak to you soon, hopefully, and all the best, my friend. All the best. Have a good
night. Thank you, Steve-O.
Dan was there, but now he's gone. Dan was in the waiting room, and now he's gone. Dan, if you want to come back into the waiting room, unless it's too late for you, of course. Bring in Paulie FPL. Paulie, you're now on air. Could you just mute the stream for me, please? Paulie, can you hear me?
Yeah, 2 minutes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, Paulie FPL. How's it going?
Not bad. How are you guys?
Oh yeah, I'm
regular. I'm right in saying you're a regular contributor in the chat, but is this the first time live on air?
I think this is the first time live I've spoken to you.
Yeah, I actually was speaking to Wiz in the chat, and I actually only just found out I can actually use my phone to ring you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a pleasure to have you on. For first time caller, how long? I'm just curious. How long have you been following the show for?
Only about 3 weeks. Not that long at all.
Oh wow. Okay. And so yeah. You know, how long have you been part of Discord? And literally today.
No, I joined Discord about a week later. So a couple of weeks.
Oh, right, okay. So anyway, moving on from that, I'm detecting a little bit of an accent there, some up to north accent, and I would say that you're a Man United fan.
I am a Man United fan
because I can see that you've got the Man United badge on Discord. I'm not that good at guessing people's allegiances, but firstly, then today you've got to be happy with that United performance because I was.
Yeah, the first half it was basically all Man U.
Mm-hmm.
Liverpool didn't really turn up until the 84th minute.
Yeah, I know.
And then
moment of madness from Young just switched off, didn't he?
Yeah, it just goes to show as well how far Liverpool have come compared to Man U. Because a few years ago, if Man U had been on top for 80 minutes, they'd have been 3-0 up.
Well, it is a sign of the times, unfortunately, and we have to. Yeah. I mean, I said at the beginning of the game week I'd be happy with a 0-0. I honestly, because of the way United's playing at the moment, I know we haven't got a very we haven't got a ruthless attack. Let's be honest. And Liverpool, I was worried that if David De Gea were injured, I was worried with the defense, but they came out trumps today. I think Solskjaer had a game plan. And it was a really good game plan. But FPL wise, let's bring up your team. We've got your team up here. You got Pope in goal. Otamendi didn't play, so you're going to be having you're not going to have Lundstrom. Sorry, you're going to have Yarmolenko coming on, aren't you? 1 point.
Yeah, I'm going to get all three bench players because I've had Otamendi, Salah, and Aguero.
Oh yes, I've got just seen that now. Yes, you've got. Well, that's. How do you feel? Come on, give me your thoughts on this game week.
I'd be more annoyed if I still hadn't got Aubameyang as my captain, Tierney, and then obviously the 2 bench players left to play. So I've still got 4 players left.
Well, you got 5 if you count your captain twice.
Oh, yeah.
I think that for a lot of people that don't own Aubameyang, myself included, we're going to be really nervous tomorrow.
Oh, it's you know it's going to happen, Jason.
I know it's going to happen. He's going to get a double-digit haul, and the people that have got him in are going to laugh, and the people that have captained him are going to absolutely be smug as sin. And I tell you what, they've got every reason to be, because everyone was looking at Aubameyang as an option. Even yourself, Steve, you didn't in the end go with him, even though you said all for 2 weeks you said you were going to go with the AAA, and you went and didn't do it. I think that no, and if Aubameyang does well, then well done to you, because I think that he was up there as one of the prime candidates for captaincy this week. And with Tierney as well. I mean, who knows?
I actually had Aguero as the captain up until about 15 minutes before deadline, and I swapped him over. So I'd have got Aubameyang's points either way.
Who would your vice captain been? Would have been Aubameyang, would it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Captain Aguero, vice Aubameyang.
Well, I mean, this is a Sunday surgery, and on the Sunday surgery we talk about shaking up teams that aren't performing and doing surgery to teams essentially. You've got Otamendi in. We've seen people lose patience with him, transfer him out. Are you looking to offload Otamendi? And what's your thoughts with Salah? Are you not concerned? I certainly wouldn't be, but how are you thinking?
I just think I'm going to keep Salah. I think he'll eventually come good. It'll not take him 10 game weeks, it'll be 1 or 2, and he'll do something, and then everybody else will be wanting him back in again.
That's it. I mean, they looked a bit of a different team, didn't they, today, without Mo Salah? They really did.
Yeah, they did.
And I think that with Firmino not doing anything as well, they look very toothless just with Mane. But no, I think you're right. I mean, there's not really many. What's your thoughts on McGinn? Having McGinn in, obviously he's been very unlucky. He's not been involved in many of the point returns at all. The last few years, Grealish that's been taking the limelight, isn't it?
Well, I actually used my wild card at game week 8. I actually thought it was the international break, so I did it a week too early. And then I went to put De Bruyne in, and then obviously he got injured, so then I had to put Aguero in. And McGinn was just for the fixture against Norwich.
So what
scored 6 and they didn't get anything.
Yeah, I know. Oh god, I know. Yeah, he shared in the pain of many FPL managers. But what's your plans going forward then?
I just think I'm going to stick with this team for a little bit. I think it looks good enough on paper to do well.
Yeah, you got a lot of players that differentials there. We say about the word differential, and like Tierney being a player that a lot of people are looking at, showing a lot of promise, a lot of potential there. And we haven't seen it yet FPL wise, but yeah, you could be ahead of something there. And obviously, you've got Saka in as well. Do you feel that Saka's gonna? Well, I know he's on your bench, but do you feel that Saka's gonna be affected now Lacazette's back?
Yeah, I actually put him in as a straight swap in the wildcard for Dendoncker.
Oh, right.
I didn't realise Lacazette would be back this quickly, but I do think that Lacazette will play over him now.
Yeah, no way. Steve-O, your thoughts on Paulie's team?
I think you've covered it here. I think it's a very, very good team indeed. I just can't believe you got Tierney and Aubameyang playing, and
all his
subs
are coming on as well.
All the subs coming on, everything.
Yeah.
Just
you could end up getting 45, 50 points. Honestly. And big green arrow. If the stars align for you tomorrow, you could be getting a good green arrow.
Yeah, I've actually gone down. I was about 700,000 and 1.2 million now.
Oh wow!
And that's without the game tomorrow.
Well, yeah, but that's those numbers are going to be changing, I'm sure. No, thank you, Paulie. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. It takes a lot for people to come on the show. Appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to come on, and it's been a good day for United. I'm happy with the score, and long may it let it be a sign of our improvement. Let's just say that. And
can I just say one thing just before
absolutely,
I go?
Mate, absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned about the accent.
Yes.
I'm actually from Barnsley in South Yorkshire.
Yes.
And my family, my grandpa actually became a Man United fan because he went to school with Tommy Taylor, if you know, who died in the plane crash.
Yeah, Busby Babes.
And he played football with him, and he just
really?
started supporting Man U from then. So that's how my family are Man U fans.
Wow, that's much better. That's much a better reason for me. My first Man United. Well, sorry, my first football shirt was Man United. That's the reason why I clung on to Man United as a child. Yours is a very much more elegant reason, and thank you for sharing that with us, Paulie. Appreciate that, buddy.
My first shirt was Leeds that I actually won in a raffle.
Oh, they were good. Leeds were a top club. They were a top club. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. 90s, and but yeah, they have fallen from grace. But hopefully, one day they can resurrect themselves. But that's on another conversation for another day. Paulie, thank you so much. Cheers, buddy.
Nice talking to you.
Thank
See
you.
guys.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, dude.
Awesome.
There we have it.
I love the fact that tonight we've had some new faces or new voices come on the show. I really find it refreshing to have some new voices come on and give their opinion, and also to share with some personal insight there.
I also say this as well. It's nice talking real football. Sometimes I just think, even though I know we're an FPL stream, I think it's just nice just to kind of put that to one side sometimes and just discuss the actual real football. I think the conversations you've been having about Man United, VAR has just been this just fantastic listening. It just gives you a break from 21 points, 32 points, 60. You get the idea. But talking of which, and I was going to ask you a question actually. Someone asked earlier on, I apologise who it was, but they were asking about some of the Elite FPL merchandise. Okay. And we do shipping abroad. In this specific case, Ireland, but shipping abroad is that? I don't know. I'm asking you.
I'll find out, guys and girls. I should know, but I don't know because I've not ordered it from abroad. So I'll do my best to find out and give you an update on that on Discord and or in stream. So yeah, I watch the space. I don't know yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts, James, before we wrap up?
Wow, it's just been a really bleak game week for a lot of people. I keep saying it. Just keep your head up. Don't panic.
It was Mark.
Don't panic.
Mark's still here.
Mark, no worries, Mark. We'll try and get an answer for you on that one. I don't ship it. I don't do it myself. It's done via a fulfillment provider. So I'll find out. TM. But yeah, thank you ever so much for everyone that supported us tonight on the show, all the new members of the channel. You guys really help support the show and make it what it is, and help us improve every single week. We are improving and we're trying our best to come up with new ideas and new innovative ways of giving you the best content we can. And you guys, I honestly cannot thank you enough. You guys are what make the stream as great as it is. Because when you guys come on Discord, share your thoughts, or rant and rave, or jubilant because you've got a great score, that really makes us just makes it so great. Thank you, Steve-O. Do the admin.
Yes, absolutely. It's the usual line, everybody. If you've enjoyed the stream, all you got to do is simply hit that like button. That's the easiest. The easiest way to support this show and the stuff that myself and Jason do is by hitting that like button. Like Paulie, like Lewis earlier on, if you watch the show on a continuous basis and you haven't subscribed yet, we've just surpassed, I don't know if you know this, Jason, we've surpassed the 2,700 mark now. We've gained 30 subscribers in the last couple of days.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And we're our next milestone is 3,000, and Steve-O's going to down a bottle of vodka, aren't you?
Yeah.
No, but tell him to remind them about the anniversary stream as well. We got coming up in November.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So November the 1st. That is a week's time.
Friday.
Yeah, blimey.
Friday. A week Friday.
A week Friday. We are celebrating our 1 year anniversary for the first ever the first ever time we were live on YouTube. So yes, come and join us for celebrating with myself, Jason, and Dan. Dan will be back. The three of us will be just essentially talking all things Elite FPL. Why you enjoy the show. We're gonna get a lot of the regular members on. Hopefully, a couple of special guests. Hopefully, that have been followers of the show for a very, very long time, and we want to get them live on air to essentially just celebrate all things Elite FPL, to celebrate our birthday. But
King Hurl,
yeah,
Kiri, Mitkov, thank you very, very much for your kind comments. It's much appreciated. We love doing it for you guys. We love making everything that we do, and we just can't thank you enough. We really can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I just said, if you haven't subscribed, you do again another way to simply support the show by hitting the subscribe button. Of course, the notification, because like this morning, people like myself, and it is usually me, I always do impromptu streams, and the only way you're going to find out is when that notification button is hit, and it will just like that ping up, and away you go. But I will always let everybody know through Twitter and Discord first. If you don't follow us on Twitter, if you are on Twitter, follow us at Elite FPL, and of course I will the link for Discord is in the description. We are on Instagram as well. Friend of the show, Dan, he runs the Instagram, so if you want to contact him, then by all means that's at Elite FPL on Instagram. If you want any of the merchandise that I'm wearing, are you wearing the shirt as well, Jason?
Yeah, I am.
But by all means, go to elitefpl.com, check out the website. It's a fantastically, superbly put together website that Jason's done. And yeah, if you want to buy some merch, by all means. But again, it's completely down to you. We're not going to be pushing that.
Right.
Per se.
Absolutely. Guys, it's 10:30. Sorry, Pig Asian. We'll get you on next time. I'm sorry we're running out of time. We're back tomorrow night, aren't we?
Yeah, well, Simeon actually asked about that. We're going to be covering the Cash Mini League tomorrow, aren't we? And looking through, but also we'll be, I suppose, covering the Sheffield United Arsenal game as well. May as well.
I'll speak to you afterwards. We'll work something out about that because logistics and all that jazz. Thank you, guys. We don't want to keep going on about this ending. Take it easy. Have a good one. We'll speak to you tomorrow. All the best.
Just of interest, whereabouts are you? Not in the world, but are you near like an industrial machine or something? It's very 2 seconds. Just ask a couple of questions. I just needed to get the door for a second.
No problem,
this is what happens when you're live.
What's going on?
Not really. I'm waiting to go to gym. What about yourself?
Live on YouTube doing a stream.
Why do you feel that you're constantly changing your teammate? Is it just there's just so many ideas?
So many ideas, so many different perspectives. I blame Brett Mollison for his 5 at back, because when you see my new team,
wow.
Brighton home, they couldn't buy a goal in the little season.
Well, I don't know. Dan's got Glenn Murray. I think he'll have a word to say about that.
I'm detecting possibly a German accent. I'm probably completely way out. But where are you calling us from?
South Africa.
On the first day, I literally just typed in FPL, like first draft, and yours came up like first. So I thought, I'll watch one of the live streams when it comes on. And then I thought, this is a bit long, isn't it? About 2 hours in. And then 3 hours later, well, an hour later, I was like, yeah, these seem alright, you know. Steven's not that bad.
I have one question for you. I want you to predict the order of the Elite FPL ranking. So, like, who do you think will finish first, second, and third out of y'all three this season?
So it's certainly no disrespect to Dan, but it's certainly going to be between me and Jason. And right now, as it stands, I'd go with Jason because my history suggests that I'm going to be having a bad season.
So I've got the 5 at the back. I just see a lot of value there. I feel like if I don't have Salah, I can spread the money elsewhere and maybe get the points another way.
All the teams now, except for obviously Salah and Sterling, these players, a lot of players are going to change towards the start of the season just because of new transfers. injuries that could happen, and all of that. So for me to tell you now, like personally right now, I'd say definitely if Tammy Abraham or Batshuayi are cheap, I'd get one of them, just because I don't care about the Man United. We can score against them, at least 2 or 3.
Hey guys, this season we're using Discord. It's a text and voice application where you can talk all things FPL with fellow community members. You can post your team in the Rate My Team, talk in the general chat, you can look at transfer news, look at awesome GIFs, sign up for our Cash Mini League, look at our previous podcasts, and even join us live on air in one of our streams. We look forward to seeing you guys. Link is in the description, or look at the code on screen.